I was able to stack up 15,736 points for damage leapers during the Husk Graveyard event on Damn Battlegrounds. Now I had to try this challenge 9 different times, and I even went as far as to create a table across all my attempts so I'd have a better understanding of how many materials I was burning for things that were out of my control. There is a bunch of gnarly RNG that you're going to have to watch out for during this challenge. The biggest is just leaper spawns being super inconsistent. The most bizarre spawn problem that I saw across my matches was there was a leaper at the testing annex that I could hear and even aggroed to me when I set off the alarm, but I couldn't find it. It wasn't inside, it wasn't on the roof, it was out of the map as far as I can tell. Now this may have been fixed. Embark did make a change that sounds like it could have fixed this, so that might not be an issue anymore. Now the other weird one, and pay attention to the sky here, you can see a large arc trying to spawn in, and then I'm going to jump forward here to after taking out a leaper at the testing annex. You can see it again come in right here. Another large arc tries to spawn. The only large arc that would spawn in the Red Lakes is a leaper. And notice how when I run over to see what actually spawned in, there is nothing that spawned, and it looks like that spawn just completely and totally failed. So the spawns are really wonky and can really affect your ability to set a high score. What can be even more tough to deal with, especially in real time, is you can have all of the leapers spawn at the beginning of the match and take them out super quick to stack up your points. Notice how I got that leaper taken out at 27.5 minutes and this leaper at 26.5 minutes. And then the final leaper that would be on the map at the start at water treatment at 24.5 minutes. I ended up waiting until the 15 minutes remaining in the game before I extracted. There was not a single respawn of a leaper for the rest of the round while I was in it. This means the first leaper that I took out didn't spawn after 12 minutes, the second leaper that I took out didn't spawn after 11 minutes, and the third leaper that I took out didn't spawn after 9 minutes. That is over 33% of the match where I couldn't progress the trials. So you just need to be aware of that and pay attention to it as it happens to you. Make sure that you extract and get yourself into another game, and hopefully the RNG will be better for you. And then the other things that you want to watch out for that was pretty common across all my games is leapers not spawning at one of the locations they should spawn in at the beginning of the round. For whatever reason, sometimes leapers just won't be there, and as far as I can tell, if they're not there at the start of the round, they'll either take forever to spawn in or just won't show up throughout that match. Now, since RNG does play a big role, you can do this across a few different maps and conditions. The first is Damn Battlegrounds during an Electro Storm or Night Raid. One leaper will spawn at the testing annex, one leaper will spawn in the Red Lakes, and one leaper will spawn at water treatment. So your goal is to essentially just rotate between all three, picking up the eliminations as you go. You can have leapers respawn as soon as 5 minutes after you've taken them out, or 7 to 8 minutes is about average for what I've seen. Anything longer than that, something has gone weird in your game and they're just not responding at the rate that you will need to get the same amount of points. You can also do this during an Electro Storm on Bluegate. The leapers will spawn at the ruined homestead, near the adorned wreckage, and up near the warehouse complex. Bluegate requires a little bit more running, so zip lines are really good and helpful, but it is a potential, and I was able to get 14k on that map. Now for the actual run itself, my equipment is a little bit overloaded than what you'll actually need. Because of all the tries that I made at this challenge, I was broke. I had no materials to actually make more hole cracker rounds, so I brought in the Batina as a backup in case I ran out of hole cracker rounds. All you really need to focus on bringing in to be effective is a hole cracker with at least 6 stacks of 24, a bunch of adrenaline shots, zip lines if you can, and then your normal healing and shielding items. Everything else outside of that is just extra and will help you manage the smaller enemies. Now during the Husk Graveyard event, leapers will spawn at the Hydrodomes, the water treatment extraction, and the testing annex. So once you spawn in, you want to head to whichever location is closest to you. Now I recommend fighting leaper from a place of cover. While you can manage to deal with it outside of cover, it's also very easy to get caught out, and if it leaps on top of you, the amount of time that you're stunned and knocked down can be long enough that its charged up attack that follows will take you out and send you back to Speranza. Make sure you clear out the area that you're going to fight leaper from, and there's no smaller enemies behind you that will then come and attack you once you start the fight with leaper. With the hole cracker, focus your shots into the center of leaper, so right into the eye, and try to avoid putting shots into the legs if you can help it. You can take a leaper out super quick as long as you're hitting all your hole cracker shots right into that center body. Now, a single Leaper elimination, if you get all of the damage on it, will give you 1,760 points. If any other player does damage to it, you will lose the amount of trials points that you can earn for each elimination. So just be aware of that if other players are helping out, while it's nice that they're trying to help, it actually ends up hurting you in terms of your ability to set a higher trial score. So after taking out the Leaper in the Hydrodomes, I rotated up towards the water treatment extraction. Figure out where the Leaper is, make sure there's no other enemies around that could cause trouble once you start the fight. The key enemies that will surprise you and do the most damage to you are the Comets. When fighting all of the Leapers across all of these tries, Comets were pretty frequent in terms of jumping in the fight midway through and causing a lot of havoc during the fight. So I do recommend not draining your Hole Cracker all the way down to 0 and reload when you have at least 1 or 2 shots remaining. This just ensures that if a Comet shows up randomly, you're not sitting there totally exposed without anything to do to defend yourself against it. Remember that you can take a Comet out in a single shot if it exposes its core, and you put the Hole Cracker shot right into its weak spot. Otherwise, it can take anywhere from 2 to 3 if you're hitting the outer armor first. Now from the water treatment extraction, I rotated down towards the testing annex. The testing annex Leaper can roam a pretty good distance around the annex itself, so you need to look everywhere for it once you get down there. There are a couple of really good spots to take the Leaper fight from, and I recommend the supply depots. They give you a good amount of cover, and Leaper likes to try and shove itself into the smaller ends, and it will just kind of get stuck there, giving you pretty easy shots with the Hole Cracker. Obviously, the Hole Cracker is not the easiest to use, and with Leaper being essentially very slender in terms of its legs and its body, it can be very easy to miss shots. So definitely give yourself grace if you're not hitting your shots as consistently as you want to. It is challenging to hit Leaper repeatedly with a Hole Cracker. Once inside the supply depot, just use anything that you can for cover. If you can get Leaper to come to one of the ends, it will often try and shove itself into the supply depot, making it very easy for you to hit your shots. If other enemies aggro to you while you are fighting the Leaper, you need to prioritize the other enemies. Now, this Leaper took some damage from the Firefly that I took out, and I don't know if it actually impacted my score or not. It's totally plausible that the damage from the Firefly would take away some of the trials points. Now from here, it's essentially just a waiting game. Instead of running all the way back down to the Hydrodomes, what I would recommend that you do is you hang out essentially on top of the dam. There's a really good lookout point where you can see both the water treatment and the Hydrodome Leaper spawns if they come in. Now in general, the first Leaper that you take out should be the first Leaper that respawns, but it's really not always the case. So I do recommend paying attention to at least 2 out of the 3 spawns, so you can be ready to rotate to the one that comes back in first. If you're not sure how to tell whether or not a Leaper is spawning in, you have to pay attention to the smoke cloud that comes down from the sky when the enemy is spawning in. Smaller arc enemies like wasps and hornets and fireflies will have a thinner smoke cloud, and then the larger arcs like bastions, bombardiers, leapers, and rocketeers will have a much thicker smoke cloud. So you're essentially just keeping an eye out for that thick smoke cloud to spawn in, and then once you see that spawn, you want to get yourself over to that spot and aggro Leaper. Now don't forget, Leapers do love to leap, so you can use that to your advantage. By staying up on the dam wall, you can essentially shoot the Leaper from range and just let it make its way up to you, and it will leap once it gets close enough. Make sure you're in a spot where you can get to cover pretty easily, because that leap, if it lands on top of you, will deal a massive amount of damage. Now from here, all you want to do is just rinse and repeat the strategy up until the last few minutes of the round. Leapers will continue to spawn all the way up until the final seconds, so make sure that you're doing that full rotation as best you can to pick up as many spawns as possible. Once you've stacked up enough points and you're happy with your score, head back to Speranza, collect any loot if you haven't already, and watch your score fly up the leaderboard. That's going to be it for me today, y'all. Thanks for watching.